With the NC set, we're going to go to our feature options. And in our feature options, this is where we have the ability to define the parameters. You can see it's called out as feature list whole group 10, which is what we're currently working with. And then you'll see that it shows machining depth and diameter created. And those are based again off of the tool and the tech database number that it's using. Now, one of the cool things about this is if I go to the parameters button, it gives me all of the basic information that we already had about the tool previously. Just in case you want to take a quick look, it's all right here inside the library. You also have the ability to override the machining depth. So if you knew that you wanted it to go to 3/4 of an inch or 750 thousandths, and it may not be modeled to that depth, you have the ability to come over here and tell it, you know what, instead of a 1/16 down, I want it to be 0.75 down. And what it'll do is it'll actually adjust all of those depths accordingly. You also have the ability to change the diameter. So if you wanted it to make a bigger diameter hole than what it's currently going to do at a 1/16 inch deep, you can tell it I want it to be 250, and if I hit tab and hit set diameter, you'll notice to make a 1/4 inch diameter off of the tip of that tool, it's going to require it to be 75 thousandths deep, which is a pretty cool feature without having to math it all out. You can say, well, I just want to be able to countersink to a 1/4 inch diameter. The next area we'll look at is the Advanced tab. And the Advanced tab gives you your Z limits, upper limits, lower limits, and then you have the ability to mirror a tool path. This comes in pretty handy if you had a whole series of holes and you pick half the holes and then you just want to mirror the tool path to the other side of the part. You have the ability to do that right here. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward, just like you would mirror in SOLIDWORKS. Last area is posting, which we would have defined in Module 1, whether in the posting tab where we want absolute or incremental movements, and then what type of coolant we want. Do we want flood, mist, or through hole? Through hole would be like through the spindle coolant. We'll leave it at flood. And then in optimize, this is one of my favorite areas of CamWorks, is we have the ability to tell it to either move from the inside out, outside in, shortest path, or you can move in a grid. When we do a lot of programming for, say, like lasers and things like that, where we're doing flat 2D work, the shortest path or grid gives us the ability to play with the feeds and speeds and the time. And where you get that information from is right here. It's going to tell you the number of segments, the length, and then the min and max that it's going to take to do it in X, Y, and Z. And then it also comes down here and tells you the toolpath length, the rapid time based off machine setup, which we'll get to when we talk about the technology database, and then the amount of time in minutes it's going to take to do the center drill. So depending upon how you set this to move is going to determine how these numbers change. For this example with center drills, it's going to be about the same amount of time. It doesn't change a lot, but if you had 300 parts on a sheet, that's going to change drastically whether or not you grid or do shortest path. And you can also tell it whether you want it to move horizontal or vertical based on X and Y as you see here, and then which pattern you want it to do. There may be times where you only want it to zig, so it would just go up here, then move over, then come back, then move over, versus going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like a zigzag. You can give it a bandwidth, and then you can also do last closest. And what that'll do is it'll look if there was any tool paths ahead of it in the operations, it'll go to the closest next feature versus starting over and then picking its own grid. Pretty powerful stuff, really cool stuff. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and leave all the information we have here. On your screen, you'll be able to select the OK at the bottom with the dialog boxes the way they are. They're just a little bit big for this small display here, so I'm just going to go ahead and close it. And then we end up with our feeds and speeds that we have over on the right-hand side in the display area. And that right there actually will cover the basics of the center drill. We'll take a look at the drill feature next so you can see how comparable they are between center drill and drill.